Hello and welcome to Sacred Ground, Watering Beneficial Seeds. I'm Reverend Michael,
And I'm Ollie.
and we are Sacred Ground Community Church and Sangha. We're a melding of Buddhism, Christianity, and Mother Earth spirituality. We're grounded by Thich Nhat Hanh's teachings. And here at this time of the pandemic, our aspiration is to water beneficial seeds. This is our special Good Friday Easter broadcast. We're going to have a reading from the Gospel of Matthew, a reading from Thich Nhat Hanh, and then I'll give a Dharma talk, and we'll have a short moment of mindfulness at the end. And so we'll begin with just a moment of centering before the readings. And as usual, we have the Tibetan singing bowl, and the invitation is to presence. The invitation is to be right here in this moment and enjoy the sound of the bell.
The first reading is from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 27, verses 27 through 31. Then the soldiers of the governor took Jesus into the governor's headquarters, and they gathered the whole cohort around him. They stripped him and put a scarlet robe on him. And after twisting some thorns into a crown, they put it on his head. They put a reed in his right hand and knelt before him and mocked him, saying, "Hail, King of the Jews!" They spat on him, and they took the reed and struck him on the head. After mocking him, they stripped him of the robe and put on his own clothes. Then they led him away to crucify him. The second reading is from Thich Nhat Hanh's book, Creating True Peace. The second half of the 20th century was characterized by individualism, the desire to do things only for the sake of our separate selves. Our society has been dominated by the desire for fame and wealth, material things, and hedonism. As a result, many people have fallen away from their spiritual traditions and their families. We cannot have healthy families and communicate if we believe joy can be found only in the pursuit of power, sex, and weapons. Tragically, people in the third world are imitating the materialism of the West. In China, Vietnam, and other countries, many have abandoned their spiritual traditions. They long to buy the latest, most sophisticated video equipment, portable telephones, color televisions, and other technological toys. Consumption has become the focus of their lives. Many people no longer believe in anything, no longer have ideals. They no longer have a cause to serve. We need to look deeply to see what we are doing with our lives. We let individualism prevail in the 20th century, and frankly, we have made a mess of it. We must begin anew. For the 21st century, we need a new, different direction. We can no longer continue destroying ourselves and the planet we live on. With determination, we can abandon the cult of individualism and the self, and act and live in harmony in the spirit of interbeing. The Sangha, the spiritual community, is our new direction, and Sangha building is the noblest task we have before us. To build a Sangha, we have to learn to open ourselves to each other and to share our experiences, insights, time, and love. The Sangha must be the refuge for us in this new century.
A couple of weeks ago, I was talking to a friend of mine from seminary, Richard, and he said, Corona means crown. And he spoke of the coronavirus and related it to the crown of thorns. We're recording this on Good Friday. And those of us who are guided by the teachings of Jesus, this is a holy weekend. We have the death and mourning of Good Friday. And you have the rebirth, resurrection, renewal that we associate with Easter Sunday. Jane Yolen, she's an author who writes of the mythic and the folkloric. And she says that when her son was seriously ill, that she and her husband turned again and again to metaphor. And I think at this time of pandemic, we need to think in the symbolic, or at least it may be of some value to us. It may water some beneficial seeds. That's one of the things that I love about the Christian tradition, that I love about Bible stories, is that invitation to apply anew and rethink how these stories may relate to our current joys, our current struggles. Oftentimes within Christianity, people speak of taking up their cross, but I don't think I've often heard people speak of putting on our crown of thorns. And I don't want to speak of this lightly as some kind of romantic metaphor. We know people within our circle of friends who've tested positive. I know of a dear young man right now who's on a ventilator. The suffering is real. Sometimes we just hear the numbers and they're disturbing, but it's when we hear the story of an individual person that we're touched. I recall the same experience for myself at 9/11 when you first heard the numbers or heard of how many people had died, but then when you started to hear the story of an individual, the story of a person whose life was cut tragically short, that's when I found myself not just intellectualizing, but feeling. We chose the readings today, the Matthew reading where the crown of thorns is placed upon Jesus before he is crucified, and also the reading from Creating True Peace by Thich Nhat Hanh that speaks of what we've been doing basically since World War II. A focus on consumption, individualism, forgetting of our deep spiritual values, a belittling of family and community. My Aunt Pauline, she died over 20 years ago, but I still remember her saying, maybe this country needs a good depression to get its values in order. And Aunt Pauline was one of the most loving, compassionate people I've ever met. She would never wish for the pain or the suffering that a depression would bring. But even decades ago, she knew that we needed something to jar us out of the superficial, the destructive, the selfish mode that we as a world community seem to be on. The crown of thorns is deeply connected to the renewal, the new beginning of Easter. These two are not separate. Thich Nhat Hanh might say they inter-are. The suffering of the cross is not separate from the empty tomb and a new time. We are all part of this circle, this life cycle, this interconnection of life and death. And it's too easy for me or for anyone else to just speak in lofty metaphors. But I will say this. We, whoever we are who make it through all this, I believe we have an obligation. I believe we have an obligation to those who suffer through this, to those who die because of this, that we create new meaning, that their suffering and their deaths not be senseless, that we take this pain and that we create anew. That we, the human family, become something better than we were. That we take the horrors of this and move ourselves onto a new path, a new beginning. As Thich Nhat Hanh, as he says, we have been on a path of suffering. He writes, we have made a mess of it. We have exported consumption and destruction of our earth. We have abandoned spiritual traditions. We have pursued power, sex, and wealth. We are on our Good Friday. Many are called to have that crown of thorns. Could be me, could be you. But there will come a day beyond this. And we need to be thinking of how do we honor all those who are suffering and have suffered, all those who have lost. We do them no honor if we simply go back to what we were doing before. None of us have asked for this. But all of us need to ask ourselves, since this is what we have been given, how can we take this and add to what's truly healing, what's deeply beneficial? How can we add greater kindness and compassion? How can we begin to live with our hearts a little bit more open? How can we begin to step away from political and economic systems that are bent on profit at all costs? We call this program Watering Beneficial Seeds. And I think of droplets of water in an ocean of activity that are needed. I've spent my days for so many years looking to spiritual and religious traditions and prayer and meditation practices. These are the few drops I can add. I hope they add to the good. I hope they honor my friend who's on a ventilator. But you know what? You have other things to add. You have skills and visions and talents that I don't have, and that the next woman or man doesn't have. Bring all that is beautiful within you to our future. That's the Easter message. That's the Easter message that transcends Christianity. That's the universal message. That's our work. That's our calling. In this moment, that is our choice.
We invite you to listen to the sound of the bell and to join us in a few minutes of meditation. I invite you to take a deep breath in, hold it, and let it out slowly. You may have your eyes opened or closed. Get yourself in a relaxed position. And breathe. Breathing in, I relax my body. Breathing out, I release the tension. Breathing in, I feel the peacefulness of this moment. Breathing out, I breathe out anything that's making me not feel peaceful. Breathing in, I relax. Breathing out, I smile. Breathing in, dwelling in this moment. Breathing out, knowing this is what we have, this present moment. Breathing in, thinking about any of my fears. Breathing out, releasing those fears. Letting them go down into the earth. Breathing in, relaxing. Breathing out, any tension going into the earth. Breathing in, feeling the peacefulness. Breathing out, releasing that peacefulness to others. Breathing in, feeling solid. Breathing out, giving that solidity to others. One more deep breath in and out.